There comes a point, often after 50, when life stops feeling like something you're building and starts feeling like something you're reviewing. You find yourself looking back more often. Time feels different in your hands, and quietly, a question begins to echo. Is this all there is? You've lived enough now to see how things really unfold. You've watched effort go unnoticed, plans unravel, and opportunities slip past at the worst possible moments. And over time, that experience can evolve into something subtle, a quiet lowering of expectations. It doesn't feel like giving up. It feels like being practical. You tell yourself you're simply adjusting to reality, but somewhere beneath that reasoning, a different truth is forming, something that has less to do with age and more to do with belief. Because the moment you begin to assume your best years are behind you, your behavior starts to follow that script. You stop reaching as far. You stop expecting as much. You begin to as far. You stop expecting as much. You begin to settle, not because you must, but because it feels safer. And that's how people slowly drift into a life that feels smaller than it should. Not through one dramatic decision, but through a series of quiet adjustments, each one reasonable, each one justified, until one day you notice you're no longer building, you're maintaining. But what if that isn't the truth? What if this stage of your life isn't the closing chapter, but the moment everything finally becomes usable, where the lessons, the mistakes, the experience all begin working for you instead of against you? Because think about it. You're not starting from zero, you're starting from understanding. You've already seen what doesn't work, you've already paid the trial and error, and that gives you something most people don't have: clarity. And clarity, when used well, is powerful. It allows you to move faster, not slower, to decide with confidence instead of hesitation, to focus on what actually matters without getting pulled off course like before. But most people never take advantage of this. They carry their past like weight instead of using it as a foundation. They look at what didn't happen and assume it never will, instead of recognizing that they are now better equipped than ever. There's a shift available here, a shift from looking backward to building forward. From seeing time as something lost to seeing it as something that can still be used intentionally. And once that shift happens, everything begins to feel different. You realize you don't need as much time as you once thought, because you're no longer guessing, you're applying. You move with direction instead of uncertainty, and that changes how quickly things begin to take shape. This isn't about starting over, it's about starting from experience. It's about taking everything you've learned and finally using it in a way that fits who you are now, not who you used to be. Because the truth is, purpose doesn't fade with time. It sharpens. It becomes clearer, stronger, more defined, but only if you choose to reconnect with it instead of assuming it's no longer available. And that choice is where everything begins, not in some dramatic overhaul, but in a shift in how you see yourself. A decision that says, this is not the end of my growth. This is the point where I finally understand how to direct it. Once that decision is made, something opens. You start noticing possibilities you didn't see before. You begin acting in ways that feel more intentional, more aligned, more focused, and that creates momentum where hesitation once lived. So if you've been feeling like your best years are behind you, hold on a second. That belief might not be truth. It might just be a story that went unchecked for too long, and the moment you question it, things begin to shift. Because your future isn't decided by how much time has passed, but by how you choose to use what remains. And when you start using it with clarity, purpose, and intention, your best years don't fade. They begin. There is a peculiar change that comes upon many men, not suddenly, but gradually. So quietly that it often goes unnoticed for what it truly is. It does not appear as defeat, nor does it resemble failure in any obvious way. Instead, it presents itself as reason, as maturity, as acceptance. Yet beneath that surface lies something far more dangerous. A man reaches a point where he no longer strives as he once did. He no longer reaches forward with the same intensity, nor does he concern himself with possibilities beyond his current condition. He tells himself he has seen enough, learned enough, experienced enough to understand how things work. And from that understanding, he begins to narrow his expectations. This narrowing doesn't feel like surrender. It feels justified. It feels like adapting to reality. The disappointments of the past, the efforts that didn't pay off, the missed opportunities, all of these begin forming a quiet argument in the mind. And that argument leads to a subtle conclusion: expect less. Yet this conclusion, though it sounds reasonable, is built on incomplete understanding. It's not that opportunity has disappeared, it's that belief has shifted. The man hasn't lost his capacity. He's simply lowered his expectations of what that capacity can produce. And once expectation drops, action follows. There's a difference between wisdom and withdrawal, though many confuse the two. Wisdom refines effort. It directs energy toward what matters and removes what doesn't. Withdrawal, on the other hand, reduces effort entirely. It disguises itself as caution, but leads to stagnation. The difference isn't in what is abandoned, but in what is pursued. The man who withdraws often doesn't realize it. He continues to act, fulfill responsibilities, maintain what he's built. From the outside, everything looks stable, even successful. But inside, there is no expansion. He is no longer creating, he is preserving. And while preservation has its place, it can never replace creation. This pattern strengthens through repetition. Each time he chooses comfort over possibility, certainty over growth, the habit deepens. Over time, what started as a small adjustment becomes a way of life. The mind adapts to limitation and stops questioning it. Many reach this stage and stay there, not because they lack ability, but because they've accepted a reduced vision of what's possible. They don't see it as defeat, they call it realism. And that's where the danger lives. Because what is accepted without question becomes fixed. Consider Colonel Sanders, who began the work he became known for later in life. He didn't accept that his time had passed. He didn't assume effort would no longer produce results. He acted with the belief that his experience had prepared him, not limited him. People often call cases like this rare, but that misses the point. The difference wasn't circumstance, it was belief. One man accepted limitation, another refused. The mind, if left unchecked, always drifts toward comfort. It prefers certainty, even if that certainty is limiting. And while that tendency can be useful, it becomes a barrier when it blocks growth. So the individual must examine his thinking. He must ask whether what he accepts as truth is based on reason or just repetition, whether his current position is a result of choice or habit. There is a simple statement that can guide this reflection. I do not accept quiet surrender as wisdom. I reclaim my right to create. This is not denial. It's a challenge to limitation, a reminder that the ability to create hasn't disappeared. It's just been unused. And once that idea is considered, something begins to shift. The individual starts questioning old conclusions. He opens the door to change. That questioning is the first step back into action. At first, the change is internal. Others may not notice it, but over time it shows. A renewed interest, a willingness to engage, a quiet return to building instead of maintaining. The transformation isn't loud, but it's real, and it builds. Because once belief changes, behavior follows, and once behavior changes, results have no choice but to catch up.